Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to present to you a class, well more like a spec, that I've created because I was bored and had nothing better to do. Now, as a disclaimer, I am not good at World of Warcraft. I just like lore and coming up with lore related things to put in the game. Before we begin talking about the gameplay aspects of the Auradin spec, let's talk a little bit about its lore, which there isn't much. Since you see, the Auradin is a variant class for the Warcraft RPG, thus its existence isn't canonical. But you know what? I build my own WoW reality, and that won't stop me. Now, Auradin are paladins that focus their faith and their traditions solely into their auras. These paladins give up their spellcasting abilities for greater power in their auras. Now, while this sounds pretty neat, to me at least, I am slightly worried that the game needs action. You want your characters to do awesome stuff, not just sit down. And thus, I've combined a few things. Here are some fun facts about Auradins. There's a Diablo 2 build called exactly Auradin that inspired me to make this. Gavinar the Dire, fun fact number 2, is an Auradin in the Warcraft RPG. Now, Gavinar is one of the first 5 paladins of the Silver Hand and an enemy in the March of the Scourge campaign for Warcraft 3. The goal of the Auradin spec is to be a hybrid support spec, a jack of all trades when it comes to its abilities and its purpose. You see, its goal is not to replace a spec, but to provide extra support for the party members by rotating auras in and out depending on the situations. Its support nature comes exactly from the usage of its many auras, while its hybrid nature comes from the combination of all abilities it has from all the other paladin specs. In of itself, I've designed this to be a class or spec that can be easy to use but hard to master, while trying to add a different playstyle that would entice newer players to it. Or at least so I hope. Now, normally paladins come with 4 auras. Concentration aura, which makes interrupts and silences on the party or raid members to last 30% less. Then there is my favorite Retribution aura, that says when any party member or a raid member within 40 yards dies, you gain Avenging Wrath for 8 seconds. Now for the next one, another one of my favorites that comes from Warcraft 3 is Devotion aura. Party and raid members within 40 yards are bolstered by their devotion, reducing damage taken by 3%. Another one of my favorites is the Crusader Aura. The Crusader Aura is pretty interesting because it provides an increased 20% mount movement speed for all party and raid members. Now, the Auradin also will have the Aura Mastery ability. And the Aura Mastery lets you pick one of those 4 abilities I've mentioned above, Devotion, Crusader, Retribution, and Concentration, and enhance them for 8 seconds. For example, turning Devotion Aura to 15% damage reduction, Crusader's Aura giving 60% mount increase, Retribution Aura increasing the Avenging Wrath duration by 50%, and Concentration Aura making your allies immune. I think this plays pretty well into the playstyle of the Auradin, which will work with his ability to use auras as his main targets and abilities. Next, we will look upon what are the abilities specific to the Auradin. And these are the following. The names and things might change, but along the lines. So first we have Vigor Aura, which provides a small buff to players' health, 5% to all party stamina, which basically based upon the Fortitude Blessing buff from the priest. The next one is the Holy Fire Aura, which of course I took it from Diablo 2. Now, this aura provides a small dot to the enemies in 20 yards of the Auradin, and they also provide a small reduction to their damage. The enemies will hit less with exactly 5%, I said. Conviction Aura reduces slightly the enemy's armor, making them easier to hit. Next, to balance with Holy Fire Aura, there is Holy Ice Aura. Enemies are slowed by 15% with a small decrease in their attack speed, so they will hit, well, slower. Next, there is Redemption Aura, which provides a mana regeneration to the whole party, around 10%. Next are my favorites because I really enjoyed coming up with them. Avengers Aura, which is a 10% increase in attack speed for all party members for 30 seconds, but it comes with a 1 minute cooldown. Scarlet Aura, of course coming from the Scarlet Crusade, that provides a 5% lifesteal. Next is Protecting Aura. Protecting Aura will replace Divine Shield as an ability for the Paladin, but it will turn it into a more party-wide ability, granting the whole party a 3-second Divine Shield, but it comes with the cost of a 3-minute cooldown. Next, there's Aura of Might, which is a 1-minute buff of 20% damage at 3 minutes of cooldown. This one might need a little bit more working, but I think 20% for 1 minute is pretty good. Next, there is Soothing Aura, which provides a small heal to the party every 20 seconds. So at 20-second intervals, this party will get a small heal. Next, there is Sacred Aura. And this one is a bit OP, but I enjoyed making it. It's very simple. All auras activate at the same time for 5 seconds. I really think an OP ability such as Sacred Aura would bring a bit more fun and a little bit more utility to the party in general. Now, usually Paladin specs come with a mastery of something. For example, Holy comes with Mastery Lightbringer, Protection comes with Mastery Divine Bulwark, and Retribution comes with Mastery Hand of Light. In this case, well, of course, it's gonna come with Mastery Aura. I know the name is kind of generic and it kind of plays into the Aura Mastery ability, but I might think of something better in the future. Now, while usually the Paladin's normal abilities give an increase to their specific thing, I think it would work pretty okay for the Auradin to have healing, damage, and blocking increase by 5%. 5% is a lower number than what the other masteries can do, but it also provides more versatility to it. And to make the spec a little bit more interesting, or more towards my liking, the following abilities will be replaced with other Paladin abilities. Crusader Strike will be replaced by Holy Shock. Shield of Righteousness will be replaced by Divine Storm. And Turn Evil, which is an ability I've always found useless, I don't think I've ever used it, will be replaced by Cleanse Toxins. So at this point you might see how this is going into a more healer aspect, but we'll get to that. Now, when it comes for weaponry, I think the best way to work with an Auradin is to go with a one-handed weapon and an offhand. And this image was inspired by the Silver Hand artifact that technically comes with the Librum in it. And I think it would bring a pretty nice addition to Paladins as a whole. It's no longer one huge weapon or a small weapon and a shield, but it can be one weapon and a flower, for example. Yes, I exclude shields from offhand weapons because to bring more variety. That's basically it. Now let's go through talents a little, and talents are a mix of things, to say the least. Now, at level 15, you will get to pick between Redoubt, which makes Shield of Righteousness increase your strength and stamina by 2% for 10 seconds. But we know that Shield of Righteousness will be replaced by Divine Storm, so include Divine Storm into that. Zeal, which strikes the target for a number of attack power physical damage, and grants Zeal, causing Zeal attacks to chain to an additional nearby target per stack, at a maximum of 3 stacks. Each jump deals 40% less damage. And Light's Hammer. Hurls a light-infused hammer to the ground, dealing a number of spell power, holy damage to nearby enemies, and healing up to 6 nearby allies for 2.15 seconds. For every 2 seconds for 14 seconds. Next, for level 25, you get to pick between Empyrean Power, which causes Crusader Strike has a chance. Says Crusader Strike has a 50% chance to make your next Divine Storm free and deal 25% additional damage. In this case, Holy Shock. Crusader's Judgement, which Judgement now has 2 charges, and Grand Crusader now also grants a charge of Judgement. We're gonna remove the Grand Crusader part because it's not a protection, because that's a protection ability, not an Auradin ability. And then there's finally Judgement of Light, which says that Judgement causes the next 25 successful attacks against the target to heal the attacker for 7% of the spell power. Now for level 30, we are going. It stays the same with Fist of Justice, that each holy power spent reduces the remaining cooldown on Hammer of Justice by 2 seconds. Repentance, which forces an enemy target to meditate, incapacitating them for 1 minute, is being usable against humanoids, demons, undead, dragonkin, and giants. And Blinding Light, which emits dazzling light in all directions, blinding enemies within 10 yards, causing them to wander disoriented for 6 seconds. Non-holy damage will break the disorientation effect though. Now, for level 35, we're gonna have the same as the holy spec, which means we have Unbreakable Spirit, reduces the cooldown of your Divine Shield. In this case, it's gonna be the cooldown of our Protecting Aura, a little. We have Cavalier, which means Divine Steel now has 2 charges. And Rule of Law, increases the range of your heals and the reach of Mastery Lightbringer by 50% for 10 seconds. In our case, this will reflect to our Mastery Aura, which will increase the range of our more limited auras, those such as Holy Fire or Holy Ice. Now for level 40, we're going to be standing the same. With Divine Purpose, Holy Power abilities have a 15% chance to make your next Holy Power ability free and deal 20% increased damage and healing. Holy Avenger, your Holy Power generation is tripled for 20 seconds. And Seraphim, which the light magnifies your power for 15 seconds, granting 8% haste, critical strike, and versatility. Next, Seraphim comes with interesting percentage for masteries, and for both all holy, protection, and retribution. In our case, it will have the protection number, which is 8% mastery. Now for level 45, we're going to have Hand of the Protector. World of Glory's healing is increased by the target's missing health on any target. Consecrated Ground, which makes your consecration be 15% larger and enemies within it have a 50% reduced movement speed. And Judgement of Light again, which Judgement of Light will be removed by Saved by the Light. Will be removed by Holy Prism, excuse me. So, Holy Prism does the following. Fires a beam of light that scatters to strike a clump of targets. If the beam is aimed at an enemy target, it deals 55% of its spell power and holy damage, and radiates 70% of spell power healing to 5 allies within 15 yards. If the beam is aimed at a friendly target, it heals for 140% of spell power and radiates 45% of spell power and holy damage to 5 enemies within 15 yards. Next, let's go to level 50, and this one will be the Retribution line. It will have Sanctified Wrath, which basically in this case works the same as Retribution. Avenging Wrath lasts 25% longer, During Avenging Wrath, each holy power spent causes you to explode with holy light for 75% of attack power damage to nearby enemies. You will also have Crusade, call upon the light and begin a crusade, increasing your damage done and haste by 3% for 25 seconds. Each holy power spent during crusade increases damage done and haste by an additional 3%. This has a maximum of 10 stacks and it replaces Avenging Wrath. And finally, there's Final Reckoning, which has two ways of working. First, as an instant with a 1 minute cooldown, when it calls down a blast of heavenly energy dealing 250% of attack power and holy damage to all targets in the target area, and causing them to take 50% increased damage from your holy power abilities for 8 seconds. Next, we'll be looking at the passive aspect of it. And it says, while off cooldown, your attacks have a high chance to call down a bolt that deals 50% of attack power and holy damage, and causes the target to take 10% increased damage from your next holy power ability. All these abilities are supposed to work together in such a way that it shines out the hybrid aspect of the Auradin. Now, I primarily built this class for PvE. I didn't think about PvPing at all with it, and it was one of my smallest concerns when I came up with this idea. But that being said, I've also created a list of what PvP talents the Auradin could use. Now, I put more thought into the Paladin talents, which for PvE, which I might be wrong and people might judge me for that, but I've thought I've included the pretty fair and the nice ground for PvP as well. First of all, there's going to be Hallowed Ground. At level 20, we're going to have 4. So first of all, it's going to be Hallowed Ground. Your consecration clears and suppresses all snare effects on allies within its area or effect. Next, we're going to have Steed of Glory. Oh, excuse me a little. We're going to have Steed of Glory, which your divine says that your divine steed lasts for an additional 2 seconds. While active, you become immune to crowd control effects and you knock back enemies that you move through. Next, there's going to be Jurisdiction, which increases the range of your Hammer of Justice by 10 yards. After that, there's going to be Divine Favor. Your next Holy Light or Flash of Light is increased by 100%. Casts 30% faster and is unable to be interrupted. Next, we're going to have Unbound Freedom, which says that Blessing of Freedom increases the movement speed by 30% and you gain Blessing of Freedom when cast on a friendly target. Unbound Freedom also causes any Blessing of Freedom applied to yourself to be undispellable. Next, we're going to have Judgement of the Pure, which says that casting Judgement on an enemy cleanses one poison, disease, and magic effect they have caused on allies within your aura. Next, we have Vengeance Aura. That says whenever you or a nearby ally within 40 yards become victim to a full loss of control effect, your holy damage and critical strike chance is increased by 3% for 8 seconds. This stacks up to 4 times. Next, there's Luminescence. That says when healed by an ally, allies within your aura gain 4% increased damage and healing for 6 seconds. Next, we're going to have Blessed Hands. And Blessed Hands is one of my favorites for this, because your Blessing of Protection and Blessing of Freedom spells now have 1 additional charge, which means you can use them more. After that, we have Divine Vision, which increases the range of your aura by 30 yards and reduces the cooldown of Aura Mastery by 60%. And in this case, we're talking about the ability Aura Mastery that buffs your regular 4 auras. And finally, we have the Ultimate Sacrifice. Your Blessing of Sacrifice now transfers 100% of all damage to you into damage over time effect, but it lasts 6 seconds and no longer cancels when you are below 20% of health. Now, this has been the Auradin. class that I've created just because I kind of liked a little bit of lore about it, and it always reminded me about how amazing the auras in Warcraft 3 were. In any case, thank you for watching.